Okay, so here we go. We're going to talk about communications as indicated in the title. Like, subscribe, you know the drill. I am going to ask two things. One, I want some more emails. I want some more questions. While your requests for topics are good requests, valid requests, it seems like it's the same 4 or 5 every time. And for some strange reason, some of y'all can't go backwards in time and scroll down the list because we've already covered a lot of them. Now, be more clear. If you want to go into more detail, that's fine. We'll go into more detail. If it's something I don't want to get yanked off of YouTube or one of these other platforms for, I'll just send you an email, or we can do a Skype or Google Meet or I don't know, whatever the hell they are. No, I don't use anything Facebook. If you rely on Facebook to live other than for commercial purposes, you really need help. I do use, I don't even use Skype anymore. I think I use Google Meet and I use FaceTime. That's it. You're not going to see my face if we do it, but we can definitely meet and talk about stuff and go over stuff. As long as I can fit in the schedule, I'm happy to do it. I will make my second request now. Y'all need to get yourselves under control. Some of these emails, I just see a freaking angry gorilla slamming on a keyboard, breaking shit while they're trying to type an email. I don't know where the hell you people come from, some of you guys come from, or what rock you crawled out of, or what depths of hell you crawled out of, but man, so many people shouldn't be loose in society. It's very few of you, don't get me wrong. And something tells me one person using 2 different names. So if it's you, you know who you are. Go to church, get some God in your life. You need some help. I'll just keep blocking you. You can come up with as many usernames as you want. Pretty much simple to tell who you are. You type like a Neanderthal, so it's not hard to weed you out. Let's get back to the podcast. Shitty weather outside. Almost out of coffee already. And the cat's back. What a shitty way to start the day. Just going to ask one more time, like or subscribe. You know the drill. So let's get into some of this. Before I even do that, I want to give special thanks to Big P out there. He's a good dude. I have to admit, last week was a shit week for me. Big P pulled a stellar move and turned my week around. I honest to God hope I can do the same for him one day. I'm asking you guys to do something nice this week for someone you know is having a rough patch. You don't know how bad of a week they might be having. It can make a difference. It's a Christian thing to do. Just be a decent person, for Christ's sake. This is one of the first rules of survival for people that weren't there in the beginning, and I don't know, maybe I decided not to tell y'all, but I'm going to tell you right now. One of the very first rules for survival is don't be a dick. You're going to have half as many people trying to kick your door in and put a bullet right between your eyes if you're not being a dick all the time. So don't be a dick. And if you can't not be a dick, just keep your mouth shut and stay away from people. All right, now that the Hallmark moment is over, dry your damn tears away and get ready, because this is shit that can make or break you. This is communications. Without communications, you have nothing. And I'm willing to bet, myself and my group included, we do not practice communications enough, especially stupid things like nonverbal communications. That's more of a military thing. That's something we have to go into down the road. But you need to start thinking about nonverbal communications. This is something that needs to be standardized throughout your whole team. Let's put that one on a side note, though. That gets pretty complicated. There's a lot of questions with that, and I'd really like to give a lot of good answers, and I don't want to get too far off the topic today. Whenever you say communications, all right, first thing to jump into everyone's mind is what? You know what? I got a cell phone. I don't need to worry about anything else. Well, that's fantastic. You got a cell phone. That's like saying you're ready for winter because you once saw a jacket. I mean, man, simple truth. In any real emergency, communication is the difference between coordination and chaos. And yeah, sometimes in a big enough emergency, you still got some chaos, but you have more coordination. Without communication, you don't have a plan. You have a collection of confused people making independent bad decisions at the same time. It's not very easy to make it more simpler than that. You will clearly in a crisis situation identify people with good communication system to include nonverbal, as opposed to people with no communication system or a bad communication system, which is the same thing as no communication system. It's like I said, it's a difference between coordination and chaos. It takes some doing. It takes some planning. That can be, like we talked about earlier, that could be one of the things you practice every couple weeks. But again, this is another thing that you need to know. This is another thing that's more important than having a gun and having a lot of bullets. You need to be able to communicate. Unless you're by yourself, then you're just going to be talking to yourself, and that's kind of stupid. So maybe you don't need to know it if you're by yourself. All right, the illusion of connectivity. We're in an age where you can argue with strangers instantly from anywhere on earth. And that's right, I said argue because that's mostly what we do when we talk on the phone anyhow. This creates a dangerous illusion that communication is always available. We have become far too reliant on comfort items and turned them into primary tools, i.e. cell phones. Cell phones are not reliable. If you are one of those iPhone freaks that think Siri is your best friend or worse, a slave to Google because your life revolves around your Android, ask yourself one simple question. If cell phones are so whiz-bang, great, fantastic, and everything else, why do emergency communications departments still rely on radios as their primary form of communication? Yeah, give it a second for the mic drop and for me to walk away after that one. In any real crisis, power outage, infrastructure failure, natural disaster, or any combination of the above, communication systems fail in a very predictable order. First thing, cell towers go down. If they're not overloaded, power systems are not reliable, they fail, or backup power fails, or something. But cell towers are going to be the first thing to drop. Then, internet services either just fall apart, slow down, or go down. Power loss is going to kill local infrastructure. Basic VoIP and POTS line phone systems are going to go down. It's just another brick on the wall or on the desk there that you can't do anything with but pound nails because it's going to be dead. Backup systems get overwhelmed or run out of fuel. That's what I'm talking about, like cell towers using generators and stuff. And if you honestly think that every cell tower out there is checked, fuel's rotated, fuel systems are tested, you're out of your mind. It doesn't happen. So suddenly your $1,500 smartphone becomes a very expensive flashlight, and that's assuming you remember to charge it. So let's put this in a perspective. That's right. Most of the slags living around here will not be able to make their $500 nail and $100 eyelash appointments after power fails. And you know the ones I'm talking about. The ones that are talking on speakerphone in line at the grocery store that you could hear 2 counties away, holding up the line at the grocery store with their $500 fingernails wrapped around the $150 Louis Vuitton cell phone case, and their 8 kids screaming and destroying the candy rack while they swipe their EBT card to pay for their $1,700 worth of groceries. You all know who I'm talking about. We all envision holding their heads underwater until they stop kicking, including their 8 kids. Well, I'm going to say as a radical left has really destroyed the government. I see it every time I go for groceries. Getting back to the podcast, preparedness means planning and training for a moment when your normal tools stop working. That's a very good working definition, by the way, if you want to take notes. And when that happens, radio becomes king again. The technology's so old it predates modern bureaucracy, which is probably why it still works. Hold on a second. You know what time it is? Time for some freaking coffee. Oh my God, that's good coffee. That's a new one. That's one we just decided to try, and holy shit, is that good coffee. And yes, if you look into my coffee cup, it does look empty, even though it's not. It's black. It's like I drink my coffee black. Sometimes I put powder in it, but that is too good to put creamer in. Why radios matter? Radios don't rely on centralized infrastructure the way networks do. Cell networks, I mean. Radios are direct, immediate, often decentralized, and sometimes surprisingly resilient. Now, on that note, don't be thinking and I have nothing against the cheap radios you can get now, the cheap ham radios and stuff, but they are not rugged, they are not strong. The batteries will only charge so many cycles. They're decent for an emergency, but they're not going to last for a long period of time. So get that in your head right now. If you go on frickin' Temu or one of those and buy a $25 ham radio, do not expect it to last you until the second coming. It's not going to. They're going to hold up for a while, but they're going to go out. They will stop working eventually. Plus side, radios allow you to coordinate with family or a group, which, depending on your family, it's a good or bad thing. Gather local intelligence, which is extremely important. If you need a description of that, you can email me. I'm not going into that right now. You can call for help. There are standardized channels, or you would call them frequencies, that are just for help that people monitor. You can avoid bad situations before you walk into them, and that's the big one for me. It's more important than talking to family. All family's going to do is, ask you for money or something like that. When you use your radio to avoid situations before you walk into them, bad situations, they're worth every penny you spend on them. At the very least, radios listen to other people panic in real time, which is both informative, deeply concerning, and often really, really funny listening to people panic. Sometimes, which it's not the Christian thing to do, but sometimes people are unprepared. I just got to laugh at them. It's something so simple that they just overlooked because they just didn't have the time. They were too busy or too lazy. And sometimes when they hit an oh shit, it is pretty funny. This is one of the questions I was asked when we talked about radios the last time. And I was really impressed because I don't even know that I brought this into it. I don't remember. But people always want to know what is the difference between simplex and duplex. And there's the cat right on cue. Simplex communication. It means one direction at a time. Think of it like a regular walkie-talkie. You press a button, you talk, you release the button, then the other person talks. This is often called push-to-talk or PTT. This works great if everyone has radio discipline. However, I will tell you, it takes a lot of control to use a simplex radio in a real holy shit, we're going to die situation. Everybody's hammering their radio. Everybody's screaming into the radio. Nothing's going to get through. You're going to jam each other up. I personally like simplex. I personally prefer simplex. Duplex is great if you know how to program them. If you know your repeater frequencies, if you know your DTMF tones and all that happy horse shit, duplex is great. But again, we're going to go into the bad thing about duplex. Simplex is very simple. Yeah, I know, shocking. It's very reliable. It's limited in range, but the downside is you cannot talk and listen at the same time. And you say, well, I only push to talk and then I let off to listen. Yes, but it's only going through one way. Think about that on the cell phone when you're talking to someone on the cell phone and you get into an argument. If a cell phone was only simplex, it would be only one person talking at a time and you wouldn't have that colorful argument making up new four-letter swear words all the time. Duplex has a purpose. I don't think it's worth the money. I don't think it's worth the trouble of hooking up the repeater towers. I really don't. I look at it like most of the people that need simplex truly are well trained on radios. They have the radio discipline. They know what they're doing. They have a history working on radios, and they have the discipline. Now, Simplex, you can get a GMRS radio that's going to cover the same distance as a ham radio, basically, sometimes more depending on what you're pushing from. And it doesn't. You don't have to program it. You don't have to do anything crazy. You plug it in, you charge it, and you go. Duplex is a lot more involved. If you don't have somebody that knows how to program radios or use a radio programmer, you're screwed. You just got a $25 or however much you paid for it simplex radio with the option to use duplex. So if you don't know what you're doing, don't get a duplex radio. Duplex simply means two-way simultaneous communication, like we talked about, like a phone call. But you have full duplex and half duplex. And half duplex is pretty much like a simplex. It's partially simultaneous, but not fully. You're still, excuse me. Man. Duplex involves, I mean, I've heard people say they have duplex, but they don't use repeaters. I've never personally seen that. And that's full and half duplex. Technically, you can set a radio up like that, but I don't believe in it. If you're going to do that, just use a simplex radio. And if it's getting confusing, it really is interesting. Simplex, walkie-talkie, push, release, listen, push to talk, release, listen, or listen, then push to talk. Duplex, you don't have to do that. You can just start talking over each other like you're at a family get-together. And something else I want to cover. I have my license. You tell this to people all the time, and nobody listens, and police don't do it, and fire departments don't do it, and God knows the military doesn't do it. But true radio etiquette, especially on simplex, 3 to 5 second radio burst at the most. You talk for 3 to 5 seconds at the most. That means you think about what you're going to say before you say it. And you don't turn it into a 20-minute dissertation about the hubcaps that spin and you don't know how they spin. You have to make it, you have to think about what you're going to say before you do it. Then you got your channels, frequencies, whatever you want to call them on a radio. Channels are actually much more simple than frequencies, but they're kind of the same thing. I'm not going to break it down because it just gets too complicated. My ham radios, when you scroll through them, it has on the screen, it might say, FEMA emergency or, whatever, prep group talk or whatever. That's more of a frequency related situation, whereas channels, it would just be 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever you have. Think of it like a CB, 40 channels. Like I said, frequencies are usually a lot more involved. They don't have to be, but human nature is to complicate things. So there you go. So simply put, without channels, everyone would transmit wherever they felt like it, and the result would be a wall of noise resembling a crowded restaurant where everyone is yelling and nobody is listening, which I think is a very good analogy. Channels will allow for organization, predictable, and coordination. However, just because you picked a channel, you got to remember, there's no guarantee it's going to be private. Even if you DTMF and tone out the radio and everything, you're still not guaranteed privacy. It's going to be clear. It's not going to be clear. There's no guarantee just because you picked channel 2 and it worked 3 counties over that it's going to be clear where you're at. And, man, like I talked about with the 3 to 5 second radio burst, you might have a radio channel that, if you're using GMRS radios or whatever it is, if you're using general purpose radios, we'll call it that, and you just came through Maryland and it was working great between cars, and then you get to, say, Pennsylvania, and all of a sudden on your chosen channel, somebody's using it for a karaoke radio stage, which it could happen. That's why, as we get down further, you got to have a radio plan. So there's a lot involved. I want to move on to repeaters now. For most of us, repeaters aren't an option. They're not. It's not something we're going to use. especially in an extended power down situation. It's a lot of money wasted on something that's only going to work a couple days at best. Oh my God, that's good coffee. Now, in a non-power down situation, as long as there's no existential threat, repeaters are great. You can talk for miles and miles and miles. But if, like I said, if it's a power outage situation, repeaters are useless. The way a repeater works, especially on duplex, this is a repeater on duplex, okay? Just get this in your head, how it works, and then it'll make sense. People think you transmit, the repeater grabs that frequency, and then it boosts that frequency and sends it out into space, which is not true. On a duplex, you transmit on one frequency and you receive on another frequency, which means your radio signal, when you're using a repeater, you transmit. If you're close enough to that repeater to catch your signal, it will catch your signal and then retransmit it on another frequency. So let's just make this real simple, because I get lost when I try to explain it, even myself. Your radio transmits on channel 1 and receives on channel 2. So you transmit. That radio signal goes out to the repeater grabs it, and it transmits it on channel 2, which means all the radios are receiving on channel 2. So you're broadcasting on channel 1 and receiving on channel 2. Channel 2 is the signal that the repeater has captured, strengthened, and rebroadcasted. That's why it's called duplex. That's why you're using two frequencies. So in duplex, technically every channel you use is two separate frequencies. That's why I'm saying it gets so complicated. There's a lot of things involved, and honest to God, in an emergency situation, you don't need the headaches of trying to figure this out. You know, my radio, most ham radios you can program on the fly. It sounds like a good thing, and it's not. It just makes things so much more complicated. Yes, Kat agrees. Repeaters are fantastic under normal conditions. However, we have our situations, our radios that we have, not for normal situations. That's what cell phones are for. We have our radios for oh shit situations, and chances are in an oh shit situation, power's not going to be working, so it doesn't matter if you have a repeater. Oh, sorry for the yawn. You could technically reach over 10 miles with a repeater, but everything comes into play that'll block that. Tall buildings, towers, mountains, trees, dogs, cats, everything blocks radio signals. Radio signals are simply radiation. It turns out, like in life, height matters. In radio communication, which is comforting for some and disappointing for others, height matters in radio communication. Really matters. So if you got a repeater and you're at sea level and you're trying to send a radio signal to somebody over the mountain 5 miles away, nope, not going to happen unless you have another repeater on top of that mountain. So get it in your head about this whole repeater thing. If you're thinking about blowing your money on that, buy more water storage, buy more food. Don't buy a repeater. Repeaters, they require power. They're extremely complex. And you know, you really can't have too many people in charge, because if too many things get changed, that's all stuff that has to be communicated for changes to radios if not everybody's together at the same time. And it's very difficult to give that kind of information accurately, especially if one person's trained more than the other one. Like in my head, I know exactly what I'm talking about, and I realize because of my poor communications, I probably just screwed people up worse than when before they started learning about radios. Radios are very complex if you make them that way. You don't have to make them that way. That's why we want to talk about GMRS radios. GMRS is the responsible middle ground. That's not the abbreviation. That's just responsible middle ground. GMRS radios are the way to go. GMRS stands for General Mobile Radio Service. I think it's the best option for 99.999% of all preppers. It's definitely more power than basic walkie-talkies. It's decent range. You have, if necessary, There is a way to get access to repeaters, and they're relatively easy to use. You do need a license. That's the one thing. Now, granted, if the aliens are attacking, the Earth's opening up and swallowing cities, tsunamis 40 feet tall or wrecking Japan, license isn't going to come into play. However, you do need a license. If you're going to do it legally, you do need a license. And don't forget, doing things illegally makes Jesus cry. So the nice thing about it, if you get the license, is it does cover your immediate family, which, by the way, I read the working definition, that's your mag. Technically, I really think you could get away with that. It covers your mag. GMRS radios are fantastic for mag communications, local group communications, and especially I find them better for vehicle-to-vehicle contact than ham radios. I'm just going to stop there. GMRS, to me, is the way to go. I'm going to keep it simple. I'm not going to make it complicated because complicated things confuse and intimidate people. I'm recommended you go with GMRS. Okay? Done. There's also CB radios, the trucker time machine, we'll call it. So this is Spans radio or old school. I mean, seriously old school. Seriously old school. When you say CB radios, what do you think about? Truck drivers. You think about talking on the road. You think about crazy-ass, colorful personalities on the road, truck drivers trying to get a hooker on the radio, whatever. But that's what you think of. CB radios don't require a license. You got 40 channels to play with. They have the range of a few miles, but they have some advantages. They're wildly known. You can get them anywhere still. You can go on YouTube. You go on YouTube. Shit. You can go on Amazon. You can go on eBay, anything. You can get CB radios, new, used, doesn't matter. If they work, they work, and they're simple to set up. And they're simple to operate. You got maybe 3 buttons on them to use. They're not fancy. They don't pretend to be fancy. CBs are basically the equivalent of a folding chair, where a ham radio would be a lazy boy recliner. And that puts it in perspective. I like CBs. I think they're great in cars. I'd rather have a GMRS radio, but CBs are fine. CB radios are fine. Now we're going to get into reality check time. Your limitations. Radios are not magic. It's the truth. They're not. They're affected by terrain, which we said. They're affected by weather. They're affected by different types of interference. And the most powerful factor is user error. That's why I'm saying don't be getting no ham radios if you don't know what the hell you're doing. It's just another gadget that's going to sit on your shelf collecting dust. Don't be getting ham radios if you don't know what you're doing. And don't tell yourself, I'm going to take the time to learn. You're not going to. I don't know what is wrong with this freaking cat today. Molly, what is wrong? What's wrong? All right, well, you're on the podcast now. Shut up. Common mistakes you're going to make with radios, especially ham radios, which would be the not practicing. You're not going to know what channels you're supposed to be using. You're forgetting to charge and rotate your batteries, or you're talking too long like we spoke of earlier, the karaoke bullshit. Owning a radio without practicing is like owning a fire extinguisher and assuming it will explain itself during a fire. It's ridiculous to think that you're going to pick up a radio and just start using it, especially if it's got more than one button on it. Maybe those old Radio Shack walkie-talkies where you turn it on, you push to talk, yeah, you're all good to go on them. No problems. Anything bigger than that, you got to practice. Okay, now there's 2 things. They call this 2 things. Some people call it a communication plan. We've always called it a radio plan. Basic overview of a radio plan, which we've talked about several times. Your primary communications. You're going to explain what's the primary communication. Then your secondary method, which would be your primary communication, what channel you're going to jump on, what time you're going to jump on those channels to do radio checks. That's your primary communication plan. Your secondary plan is going to be your backup channel or even alternate radios maybe. You're going to have rendezvous plans on the radio, which doesn't mean you're going to put the radio down and walk somewhere or drive somewhere or fly somewhere or, whatever. It's a rendezvous plan for radios is different channels to meet up on for when communications fail or they're blocked. Like maybe something happened, maybe I don't know, man. I don't know enough about this shit, to explain the exact disaster that's going to happen. But maybe something happened in Channel 2 isn't working anymore. Your rendezvous plan would say if you're trying to get through on Channel 2 for more than 15 minutes and you can't get through, switch to Channel 3. And I would say don't try for 15 minutes because that's going to kick the crap out of your battery. But you get the idea. You're going to have predefined channels, like I said, for different situations. Like you should have one emergency channel that someone goes on to every hour. Like you assign one person every day to turn on their radio on the emergency communications channel and listen to the radio channel for 10 minutes to see if someone has a problem. That's what I'm talking about, having a good setup and a good radio plan. You're going to have established check-in times. I don't recommend you do it at like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. I recommend every 4 to 6 hours, and I recommend at offset times like 4:17, 6:17, or 4:17, and then again at 10:17. But the reason why you do this is because every schmo out there is going to be checking on the hour, at the hour, on the hour. And they're going to be clogging up the radios. And when you turn that radio on and you go to talk, all you're going to hear is every other schmo out there doing a radio check. That's why if you do it at like 17 or 27 after or something like that, you're jumping on a clear time, hopefully. The big question you're going to ask yourself, the biggest question that's going to come up when you pick up a radio and you turn it on and a million people are talking and you can't get through, and what channel are we supposed to be on, and why is my battery dead, and why didn't you charge the battery, and why did you take the batteries out to do this? The biggest question that's going to come up is why didn't we plan for this? And you're going to feel like an idiot. I guess the final thoughts, to include mild existential concerns. Preparedness is about gear. It's about systems. Everything is a system. Water system, food system, ammo system, weapon system, radio system, fire system. You got it. Communications is clearly a system. Without it, your plan's going to fall apart. I don't care how well you plan, you still got to have communications. Your group's going to fragment because you're not talking to each other. Nobody knows where anybody's going or what anybody's doing. Don't forget, friendly fire isn't. Your situational awareness is going to collapse. You might know what the group off to the left is doing because they've got a radio plan. You might know what the group behind you is doing because they got a radio plan, but you got no idea what the hell's going on to the right of you unless there's an ocean there. With good communications, you can coordinate. You're going to adapt very quickly compared to without communications, and you're hopefully going to stay ahead of problems, at least be able to mitigate them a lot quicker. Being able to mitigate problems before they become huge problems can make the difference between life or death. You should have food, you should have water, you should have medical supplies, but if you can't communicate, you're truly operating blind. In a crisis, blindness is not a survival strategy. It's a very efficient way to become part of someone else's problem. The way to think about this is look at your gear. Think about your gear. Everybody has. Power went out. Cell phones aren't working. You got to get your group together. You got to coordinate. How are you going to do that? Can you do that without stepping out of the house? Can you do that without doing anything more than just walking out in your yard and turning on a radio? Or is it oh shit time, what the hell are we going to do time? It's that simple. It's really, really that simple. That's why communications are so important. Don't feel stupid if you haven't done it yet. I've been doing this for a very long time, and so have most of the people in my group. There are some people in my group that I think are probably the most prepared people I've ever met, except for one thing. They didn't even have radios. I don't know if they're going to string two cans together. I have no idea, but I'm shocked as to how prepared some people are. Walls of guns and ammo and MREs and canned goods and water and no communication systems. So, and the other one, my favorite one, like I mentioned earlier, is you'll go into somebody's or their prepper closet or whatever they're calling it these days, and you're going to see 3 or 4 boxes, brand new, still wrapped in plastic ham radios. And I don't try to poke the bear, but I make it a very good point to point out to them immediately. You're going to actually program them when the shit happens, and bullets are flying and fire's beating down your door. Is that the game plan here? And 99% of the time you're going to hear, well, I don't really know how to use it. I just wanted to have them. Not the answer. You're wasting time. You're wasting my time. You're wasting your time. I'm telling you, you gotta think this through. That communications are extremely important. So start thinking about it now. Again, I'm happy to help. If it is a well-written email, it is a polite request. Think of it like waving. As long as you're not waving with just one finger, I'm happy to help. There's a lot involved with communications to do it successfully, and like I said, I'm more than happy to give you guys a hand if you want it. But you got to ask. I'm not going to just keep writing this because I'm going to lose people out of boredom. You got to ask if you want more help. I am going to start switching everyone in my group over to, for what it's worth, I am going to start switching everyone in my group over to GMRS radios. There is a reason to have ham radios. We're going to have ham radios. I am going to program our ham radios. But for the down and dirty nitty gritty, we're going to start using GMRS. That's my decision. I can make it. I think they trust me enough to know what I'm talking about. This is something I've argued with for a very long time. And it's just too hard to get together with too many people to go over how ham radios properly work. GMRS, all you got to do is pick a channel, volume level you want, and you go. You can buy all the neat walkie-talkie gadgets for it, like you can for a ham radio. You can get throat mics for them. You can get Bluetooth shit for them. I mean, so don't be intimidated that you're going to lose all your true prepper thing. You're wanting gadgets all the time. You will still be able to get gadgets for your GMRS radios. They're just not as complicated. And if you think complicated is cool, you're a fucking idiot. Complicated gets you killed. So hear me now. I'm recommending GMRS. If you want to go ham, I can still try to help you with that, but I'm not going to spend days teaching you how ham radios work. You go get your license and learn. I'll be happy to talk to you about GMRS though. So listen, y'all. Watch your six. I'm really hoping to have my cohort on this weekend. We got shit to go over, and we're just going to keep pushing through. It's only frickin' Monday, and I already feel like I put a week in. Y'all take care. Watch your six. Big P, thank you, and peace out.